St. Louis University law professor Greg Willard is with us. He's KTS legal analyst. And in terms of full disclosure, we've been looking forward to this all day. You were the attorney for Gerald Ford while he was president, correct?
After he was president.
After he left. But you have a unique perspective in all of this.
Right. I was his White House staff assistant, so served him in the White House.
In the White House, right. And so you're now a law professor at St. Louis University Law School. So explain to the layman, including me, how the director of the FBI can say that Hillary Clinton should have known better. The State Department carelessly handled classified information. She sent and received over 100 emails with classified information. She deleted emails. She kind of prevented a full forensic recovery of all of these. And there is evidence that she sort of helped evade and sort of obfuscate, if you will, and that possibly secret intelligence was obtained by the bad guys. How can it be that she did not break the law with all of that being said by the head of the FBI?
Let me give you a crude analogy.
Yes.
But I think it's appropriate. O.J. Simpson killed Nicole and Ron.
Okay.
He did not murder them, McGraw. He committed the act, and the legal consequences of that killing, a jury found did not rise to the level of murder. What, in the Hillary Clinton context, what the FBI director, Comey, announced yesterday was that there was an egregious series of systemic and systematic violations of federal law in any number of contexts, that former Secretary Clinton systemically and systematically violated federal law. What he concluded was that those violations did not rise to the level of constituting crimes, criminal actions, under the federal statutes that she violated. As he mentioned at the end of his statement, there very well may be other legal consequences, not only for Mrs. Clinton, but also for her aides, her advisors who were involved in this mess. But in terms of criminal consequences, he concluded that a reasonable prosecutor would not bring the criminal charges.
So the proverbial, it doesn't rise to the level of criminal. So her intent wasn't to break the law. She broke the law by accident?
No, she broke the law by, among other things, he used the phrase excessive negligence.
Right.
And he's received a lot of criticism. I'll leave it to others to decide whether the criticism is fair. But the statute has a bifurcation, if you will, McGraw, in terms of elements. One element rests on intent. Did she intend to violate the statute? And he found that there was not significant evidence of any intent. However, that doesn't give a person a pass. If they were grossly negligent in the violations, that then gives rise to criminal consequences. What Director Comey concluded and the FBI concluded was that she engaged in excessive negligence. And a lot of commentators, including former Attorney General Mukasey in the Wall Street Journal this morning, have been critical of that parsing, if you will, between excessive negligence, which is a concept not known in the law, and gross negligence, which is in the federal criminal statute.
So he's sounds like, because I listened to the statement yesterday after the show, he was painstaking in the words he chose. He was very careful, right, in this point you're making.
He was exceedingly careful.
Okay.
And if you watch closely, McGraw, he was reading from a teleprompter.
Right. There's no off the cuffs here. He's picked these words carefully, which then begs the question. He says at the end, if the words are careful and excessive and all these, and then he says no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges against it. So if he was parsing his words and yet he's made the claim that it didn't really, he basically said it wasn't a close call. Am I reading that correctly?
I wouldn't reach that conclusion. I think, to the contrary, I think it was a close call.
Okay.
And that it was an exhaustive investigation, and he was clearly, whether you read his words or watch his announcement, he was very troubled by the content, by the conduct of Mrs. Clinton. I mean, to go back to a conversation we had maybe a week or so ago, Chief Justice Roberts' opinion in the McDonald case.
Right.
And at the end, he talked about how tawdry it was, but he had to have followed the law.
Right.
I think, and we may hear tomorrow when the director testifies up on Capitol Hill, but I think you probably have a similar mindset with the director. As a citizen, as the director of the FBI with counterintelligence responsibility, this systemic and systematic violations of the law, I think tawdry would be an appropriate descriptive term. But I don't think by any stretch he saw this as an easy call, a slam dunk. I think it was a close call. I think the American people are fortunate, whether you agree or disagree with his conclusion.
Why is the American people fortunate?
I think they're fortunate for this point. James Comey made the decision. Whatever you think about the merits of the decision itself, I think you can go to the bank, McGraw, on these two facts. The sun will rise in the east tomorrow morning, and there is no public service with greater integrity than James Comey.
We've heard that now 2 or 3 times. We've had a couple of guests on all morning long, and they've all said the same exact thing. You can set your watch by this man.
Yes, and again, it doesn't negate the good faith of people who are being critical of his decision, and reasonable people can reasonably disagree as to the conclusion he reached, particularly this distinction between excessive negligence and gross negligence.
Right.
But let there be no doubt, it was done with complete and thorough integrity on the part of James Comey.
He was confirmed overwhelmingly bipartisan. I think it was like 94 to 1 or something. And he was appointed by President Bush.
He was Deputy Attorney General for President Bush. There is the now infamous incident in Attorney General Ashcroft's hospital bed at GW Hospital,
right,
when then acting Attorney General Comey confronted the White House Chief of Staff and the White House counsel over some intelligence programs that needed to be reauthorized. And then Deputy Attorney General, acting Attorney General Comey, and FBI Director then, Mueller, confronted and prevailed, if you will, in
pushback.
Stopping.
Yeah.
Pushback vigorously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he was the Deputy Attorney General for a Republican president.
Right. Okay, let's talk politics here for a second, because they don't live in a bubble. She's going to be nominated, the Democratic nominee, in 3 weeks. How can anybody, if it's a close call or not a close call, how can they, unless it's obvious, where DNA or whatever else, how can they bring charges against a Democratic nominee or a presidential nominee so close to everything? Was there any, and I guess this is hypothetical, but the question would be, hey, let the voters decide, right? Mm-hmm. If it's tawdry and it's terrible, okay, it might not be criminal. It may be criminal, but the voters voted her in to be the nominee, and they have a chance to vote her in as president. So
yes,
you now know everything I know. Make your own decision.
That's right. And as you and I have talked many times, McGraw, in a variety of contexts, this is why we have elections. So there are those who will say the fact that Mrs. Clinton may be elected in November is because of the strength of her candidacy, and she is such a strong and qualified candidate that even these violations of federal law that she appears to have committed will not be enough to negate those strong qualities. There are others that say, phooey. It has nothing to do with her qualifications, they would say. It has all to do with the bona fides of her opponent. Mm-hmm. I don't know much more about politics in that sense, McGraw, than how to spell it. But I must tell you, I found it striking that Mrs. Clinton, found by the FBI to have committed these significant violations of federal law,
right,
and her opponent, instead of seeking to capitalize on that, accuses the Attorney General of the United States of being bribed. I mean, I was born at night, but not last night. What in the world could possibly be gained politically from a charge like that?
That's
wow.
You and I, Professor, are on the same page. There's all sorts of you're 1,000%, but you're right. Hands down, you're right.
Wow. But again, the point you make is well taken, McGraw, and that is this is why we have elections.
Right.
The director Comey made his statement tomorrow. He'll be on Capitol Hill to answer questions about his judgments.
Right.
And the American people will take that into account at the ballot box in November.
Can you hold on through another segment?
Absolutely.
Greg Willard is our guest. By the way, you know who said hi? Wanted me to tell you to say hi? Jake Ansler.
Wonderful friend.
Was listening to the show last week, was driving around listening to you, and was like, this guy's really interesting. This guy's voice sounds really familiar. Who is that? And when I said it was Greg Willard, he's like, oh, sure, my old friend Greg Willard.
We used to be law colleagues and have stayed in touch. He's a wonderful man.
He is a good man. That is Greg Willard, professor at St. Louis University Law School. He's also KTRS legal analyst. More on the Clinton email scandals when we come back. 922 here, Big 550, KTRS, BOAIN, Bowen Dental Care, ladies and gentlemen. If your dental implants, if you're in the market, look no further. Bowen Dental Care. Look, you have a lot of options out there, and Dr. Bowen at Bowen Dental Care knows. You have all these companies coming in, and they'll work with a whole bunch of doctors, and they'll farm you out all over town, and they'll work with 6 or 7 other doctors, and it's one size fits all. And hopefully, you can help them reach their quota. Or you can go to Bowen Dental Care, where all the work is done in his office. All the work is done by Dr. Bowen. It's not one size fits all. And not only does he not have a quota, he will talk you out of something if it doesn't work for you. Guess what? Bowen Dental Care is that family-run dentistry that is going away, but it's thriving because John Bowen at Bowen Dental Care has been brought up in the family dentistry business. It's been handed down from generation to generation. 314-921-3500. For a second opinion or a first opinion, the only place to go is Bowen Dental Care, BOAIN, BowenDentalCare.com.
This is McGraw Live on KPLR 11.2, STLtoday.com, and the Big 550 KTRS.
Guys, are you tired of being tired? Frustrated because it seems impossible to lose belly fat? If you're looking for a solution, then listen to Mark.
I had fantastic results with the Andro 400 Max. Probably lost 35 pounds, and more impressive than that was the inches I lost off of my belly and my waist. And the increased energy is fantastic. I'll be totally honest, I tried a different product, and I wasn't happy with the different product. You guys are considerably cheaper than the other brand, and I can really feel the difference.
Andro 400 Max, the extra-strength, all-natural testosterone booster. The safe, easy, and affordable way to gain energy and lose stubborn belly fat. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Feel and look like a new man. Go to andro400.com or call 888-400-0435. 888-400-0435.
Is negative content or comments on the web affecting your personal or professional reputation? Unfavorable comments, embarrassing pictures, videos, legal documents, and negative articles can ruin your personal life, your career, or your business. It happens a lot, and it's just not fair. But what can you do? ReputationDefender.com can help protect your good name. Get a free consultation now. Call 1-800-684-5419. That's 1-800-684-5419. 5419. Call right now for a free expert reputation analysis. It's easy to squash the unfair attacks with our patented system, and the analysis is absolutely free. Make the best things about you jump out in searches. Protect your personal and professional reputation, your business, and your income. Get your free reputation analysis from ReputationDefender.com right now. Call 1-800-684-5419. 1-800-684-5419. That's 1-800-684-5419. Or visit ReputationDefender.com today.
This is Whitey Herzog, and I'm here with my friend Jeff Hoper from Hoper's Pest and Animal Solutions.
Thanks, Whitey. If you've got ants, bats, mice, mosquitoes, moles, voles, termites, brown recluse spiders, bees, or wasps, anything that's around your home, Hoper's can take care of it for you. What's that number, Whitey?
That's Hoper's Pest and Animal Solutions, 314-544-PEST.
In that neighborhood, it was almost impossible to get what we could afford. So I had set up alerts on Zillow to say, if anything in this area ever comes below a certain price point, it just popped up one day and I was like, oh my God, we have to go see it. It's a really wonderful neighborhood. And then to add on to that how wonderful the house is so cool.
10 seconds.
Means something different to everyone. With millions of homes for sale or rent on Zillow, whatever home means to you, Zillow can help you find it.
McGraw, live in the morning on KTRS.
There is evidence to support a conclusion that any reasonable person in Secretary Clinton's position or in the position of those with whom she was corresponding about those matters should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
That is Director Comey talking about Hillary Clinton and the emails. Dr. Greg Willard. He's my doctor. Professor Greg Willard. We're getting an education here. Professor Greg Willard is with us. St. Louis University law professor is with us talking about this. Okay, so again, I go back to this question. Comey said yesterday that Hillary Clinton basically lied or didn't tell. We caught her in a lie, didn't tell the truth. She said one thing, but we found out that she said four different other things. And so how do you justify that as a prosecutor? You're going to find out what's going on, and your subject lies to you in the investigation. Why isn't that a crime?
The difference is that the last phrase you used, McGraw, lied to you in the investigation. And what the FBI found is that she did not lie to the FBI. She lied to the American people. Let me give you a few examples.
Yes.
On March 10th of 2015, former Secretary Clinton said, quote, "I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email," end quote. Director Comey yesterday said, quote, "These classified chains involve Secretary Clinton sending both emails about those matters and receiving emails about those same classified matters," end quote. She also said that, quote, no information was marked classified at the time. And that was the jump she made, if you remember, McGraw. Right. I didn't send or receive any classified information. That then evolved into, well, I didn't send or receive anything that was marked classified. Director Comey yesterday, quote, "Emails containing classified information bore markings indicating the presence of classified information," end quote. Mrs. Clinton's prior statements were false, but they were statements made to the American people. They were not statements made to the FBI, and they were not made under oath. Therefore, they are not a crime.
And again, let the public decide.
And that's why we have elections as to whether the American people are prepared to cast their ballot, given those findings of her conduct.
So this whole thing is really interesting. Let me come to Hillary's defense just for a second to play the other side of this. So she's a 60-some-odd-year-old woman. She's not very tech savvy. She's Secretary of State. She's dealing with heads of state and wars and war rooms and war departments and all the other important things. Should she be required And should the next attorney general and all subsequent attorney generals be beholden to the IT guy? If the IT guy doesn't set up a server that is supposed to secure emails, government servers have been hacked. So how can it be her fault? She wasn't down there systematically setting up to avoid the servers that she was supposed to use.
Well, great argument as a proponent for Secretary Clinton. I think the opponents would say pshaw. If she was not tech savvy,
right,
and I think they would take issue with that, then most certainly she would not have a private, non-governmental email server set up in her home and then use as her device a non-secure, non-encrypted, non-government email device. She was the one, and her aides, who set up the private email server. Tech savvy or not, that is what they did. Interestingly enough, to our colloquy a moment ago, you'll recall, McGraw, that her first statement at the United Nations, she made a statement about this. That's the first time she talked about it. And she said a couple of things. I had an email server, one, at my home in Chappaqua, and that the reason that she wanted to do this is she didn't want to carry multiple devices.
Right.
Director Comey yesterday revealed to the American people that that's false, that she had multiple private servers and she carried multiple different devices. So with all due respect to your hypothetical advocate for Secretary Clinton, I don't think the defense, if you will, that, well, I just don't know much about tech and therefore I'm going to go off and do this. Can't we expect a little more from the Secretary of State of the United States, McGraw?
Where do we go from here, Professor Willard? Because emails are not going away. And I think everybody would argue that private emails between a husband and a spouse should remain private, even for secretaries of state. And yet the public deserves a right to know certain emails and certain governmental documents throughout, whatever. So how do we separate the private? I mean, just everybody has public emails and private emails and work emails and I'm buying a table saw emails and
well,
my sister's mad at me emails mixed up in with work emails.
Let's set up a hypothetical. Secretary of State McGraw Milhaven, and I'm your advisor.
Yes.
What I would advise you, Mr. Secretary, is if you want to use a device in connection with work, use a State Department issued device with maximum encryption.
Right.
And then in addition, I would give you some guidelines as to when and whether you should use that device. For example, you would never want to use that device within the boundaries of a hostile country. If you then want to communicate, for example, as President Obama does, with some close personal friends, then you have a separate device and maybe a Gmail account or a Hotmail account. And you would use that separate device solely for personal emails. That bifurcation, I think, would be appropriate and would certainly go a long way to satisfying your obligation as Secretary of State to maintain the nation's secrets. Where we go from here, back to your baseline question, I think what we witnessed yesterday were three things, McGraw. We witnessed an extraordinary statement by the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation about these, as I said before, systemic and systematic violations of federal law by a former Secretary of State.
Right.
Secondly, we now will listen to a cacophony of voices for 4 months in the political realm. But there's a third category that, as a father and a grandfather, probably troubles me as much, if not more, and that is what do extraordinary moments in our history like this do to the moral fiber of our country? what happened to the moral fiber, what is happening to the moral fiber from the conduct of President Nixon? What happened and is happening to the moral fiber for the conduct and the lies that President Clinton, ironically, told, and the conduct in which he engaged as president? And now here we go again, that the American people are told that their Secretary of State engaged in this conduct and these lies to the American people and these violations of federal law. Whether they rise to the level of criminality or not, it really doesn't matter as to the concern, I think, of lots of Americans, perhaps millions of Americans, as to what are we doing? What does this say to our children and our grandchildren that we have this type of behavior going on at the highest levels of our government? And I find that deeply troubling.
Well, I will agree with you. We'll have a lot to answer for, and future generations will we want to know a lot of answers to questions I don't think we can answer. That is Greg Willard, ladies and gentlemen, and that is at least 6 credits towards your law degree at St. Louis University Law School. Professor Greg Willard, KTRS legal analyst, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be with you, my friend.
Really interesting stuff. Really good stuff. I would put you up against just about any talking head out there because you broke it down in a way that we can at least understand it, and if you can, depending on where you sit on the aisle, you're now armed with facts, and so you can go about and draw your own conclusions. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, McGraw.
9:36 here, Big 550 KTRS. You need an appliance.